Welcome to the Tourpreneur podcast. Travel industry veteran Shane Whaley will take you on a journey with fellow tourpreneurs, sharing their tips, ideas, insights, and success stories to inspire you to make your tour business the best it can be. And now, here is your host, Shane Whaley.
Hi everyone, today we're joined by three tourpreneurs on the podcast. They're going to share their major takeaways from attending Arival San Diego, which we were all at last week. Welcome to the show, Jarrod Riddle of Spirit of Arizona Tours, Heather Fortes of Sacktown Bites, and Brian Cain of Crawl New Orleans. How are we all?
Good, thanks for having us.
We recovered?
Very well, thank you.
Are we all recovered from a very busy week?
Yeah. Almost.
Yeah. I'm 90%.
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Excellent. So first of all, share with the audience what sessions did you really enjoy? We'll get to your takeaways in a moment, but what were some of your favorite sessions? I'll start with you, Heather. Ladies first.
Oh boy, there were so many good ones, and I'm kind of type A when it comes to it because I try to attend all of them. I really liked the owner operator session. That was just kind of a free for all, but really interesting, and lots of really great reminders and points, and meeting other people and how they're problem solving and their pain points. The culinary track was really great as well. I really enjoyed that. It's always good to meet other operators that are doing a similar business, and just networking. Cultivate's presentation was really great as well. Super useful.
What were they presenting on? I wasn't at that one.
Cultivate basically was how to on paper look at numbers for growing your business. So they had a spreadsheet they shared, and they had people you could plug in your own numbers and it would calculate, and it just it's just a way to kind of get thinking about everybody talks about growth all the time, right? And but what's the practical way to do that, and what does that really look like, if you want to go from 1 million to 10 million or whatever. So that was a really useful session as well.
Brilliant stuff. How about you, Brian? What were some of your favorite sessions?
So I had a really good time with Mitch at Trip Camp on Tuesday. I know that was a full day and a lot of different presenters, but I think it really helped encapsulate where the market could be going, and helped, I think, everyone in the room have a better understanding on that. And then additionally, there was a I don't know if I would call it a round table, but the how to scale a multi-destination tour business was a really cool session for me personally, who is trying to do that, and then to actually, meet potential competitors, specifically here in New Orleans, was really cool to have like a dialogue and have some questions answered that I don't really think that one person can know without having done it before. So I took a lot of value from that.
Fantastic. And Jarrod, how about you? What were some of your favorite sessions?
These guys stole mine. I agree with Brian. I really enjoyed Mitch's Trip Camp. There was a little taste of everything, and what was nice about that is, during Arival, when they have those breakout sessions, for me, I got kind of panicky a little bit, like, oh, I want to do this one, I want to do that one. They're at the same time. But Mitch's was like nice and like layered, and then we didn't have to worry about going anywhere. It got a little long the end of the day, but then, Peter rounded it out. And his presentation was like a jolt of energy.
Yeah.
I also really enjoyed the tour operator owner session. That was a very nice roundtable. Those were the two that stuck out to me. There was so much going on that after you asked that question, I was thinking, man, I don't remember the names of them. I've got my list of notes, but I don't really remember the names of the sessions. But the two that stuck out was definitely Mitch's trip camp. It was nice and personable. And then also that owner operator session. Those were two good ones for me as well.
Sure.
Yeah, I would have loved to. Oh, sorry. I would have loved to have attended that trip camp, but I couldn't get in till late Tuesday. But I'm sure that was an excellent day.
It was.
Really was.
I was due to speak at it, and unfortunately the weather gods were not on my side. So I had lots of issues with JetBlue, and I won't bore listeners with it, but I was there 2 days late, and I missed out on a food tour, and I missed out on trip camp, and yeah, very disappointed about that. So I'm really pleased to hear that it went so well for you all. I want to dig into a little bit about your takeaways, because these events are all great to go to, but when we come home, kind of what are we going to implement in our business? So Jarrod, I'll start with you this time. Maybe share a couple of takeaways that you picked up at Arival that's gonna, because you've been in business, if memory serves me right, there for 10 years, or you've been a tour guide for 10 years, and how long has your business been around?
I've been a tour guide for 10 years. I started my company in September 2019,
right.
6 months before the. So I've just been kind of flying by the seat of my pants this whole time, and just kind of go doing what I can, but as far as Arival goes, what was really nice for me there was two things that I've been debating this whole time. And the number one thing was whether or not to work with an OTA, because you hear a lot of people especially in our community, talk about, oh, they did this, they did that. But every operator that I spoke with, they all agreed you have to do it. And that was actually a nice relief for me that, like, okay, I'm going to do it. So that question was answered. And the other really nice thing about being at Arival was I was able to walk right into TripAdvisor's booth. And I told them, I said, here are my concerns working with you guys. I said, this is what the community has been saying about working with OTAs. And I was fortunate enough that my, I guess, account manager was right there. She's responsible for the Southwest. So she and I sat down together and we spoke face to face, which is so much better than emails and phone calls. We were able to speak face to face. And when you can put faces with names, there's that personal relationship. And I felt a lot better about moving forward with working with an OTA.
What was your number one concern about working with an OTA before speaking with Viator at Arival?
I guess the idea of that you work more for them, and they kind of put the operators' challenges on the back burner, because I told them, I said, it's just me. I do all the tours, and if I get a tour that books and someone books through you guys, it's not that I don't want to do the tour. Obviously, I want to do the tour, but I can't. And if I can't, you guys ding me for it. I get, in trouble for it. And, they're like, yeah, we've been working on that, whether it's true or not. But, they're like, yeah, we're working on that. We understand your concerns. And then I told them about the communication thing, if I'm going to be late, or if another tour, some of my guests are going to be late, how do I communicate with them? And they said, we're providing phone numbers now for you to be able to communicate with your guests. So it put a couple of my concerns at ease. But again, mostly it was hearing from the other operators that, yes, you do need to do it. And there's ways you can go about doing it. And, had a very nice conversation with my rep, which was very nice. So it would have been nice to speak with Get Your Guide, but I didn't see him there. I didn't think they had a booth there. Did you guys see Get Your Guide there?
They didn't have a booth, but they definitely had plenty of people in their big red T-shirts there. But they didn't have a booth. So Get Your Guide, if you're listening, give Bruce a call. Get yourself a booth next time. Yeah, Bruce, you can cut me a check later.
Yeah, there you go. Attaboy. The other thing that I went into Arival, I mean, so many questions, but the other thing was that I was shopping ResTex. I've been working with Fair Harbor, and so I at least wanted to hear what the other ResTex had to say. And then again, talking to mostly operators, that was the key. And all of them were like, stick with Fair Harbor. They're the best. You know, they were very much on Fair Harbor side. So those were two big concerns of mine that were alleviated, that now I don't have to think about it anymore. So
So
those are two big ones.
yeah, what I'm hearing from you then, Jarrod, is obviously you're an active member of our Tourpreneur online community, which is great. But am I hearing from you that what you miss in the everyday world is connection with other operators that you can sit down with, have a coffee, and say, "Hey, how are you getting on with OTAs? You know, what strategies are working for you?" Is that what Arival gives you, that you can rock up and speak to people and get that honest advice from others?
That was probably my favorite part of Arrival. You know, the classes were all great, the information was great, but sitting around and, you know, talking to Brian, you know, we met and, you know, just kind of bouncing ideas off each other and hearing the mistakes that they made and how they adjusted. And you think to yourself, oh man, that was a concern of mine, you know? So that was definitely my favorite part, was the networking, getting to know people, because I'm a face-to-face guy anyway. So that was for sure my favorite part, was meeting everybody, meeting you, meeting Mitch, meeting um, Chris. You know, I got to meet. I sat with Peter just before the Petco Park tour for about half hour, 45, and that was, I can't, invaluable. You know what I mean? So that by far was my favorite part, was meeting all the other operators face to face, for sure.
Excellent. Any other takeaways before we move on? Well, you come up with two, so OTAs, ResTech, and I guess the networking, right?
The networking, and honestly, the third takeaway, because like I said, I had a bunch, was that Arrival was worth it. I think was my last takeaway. You know, because having never been, you see that price tag and you're thinking, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money, but you can kind of see where the money goes. You know, they put on a good event. You know, all the little parties and stuff that they put on, that it was actually a good value, I think, for the money.
Yeah.
So that was probably my third takeaway, is that Arrival was worth the money.
Fantastic. Heather, how about you? Some takeaways for us.
You know, definitely. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, this is your second Arrival, correct? You went to Orlando?
Yeah, I attended Orlando in September of 2019, and I had launched my business 3 weeks earlier. And so I was kind of a deer in the headlights and pretty overwhelmed at the first Orlando, but it was fantastic. What I have to say, I kind of liked this year because it was smaller, and I know that probably wasn't ideal for the Arrival team themselves, but you know, being such a small operator and a newbie, it really gave me, you know, a chance to meet more people and network a little more. And I just felt it easier to approach people, whether it was third-party providers or other tourism people. That was just kind of my thing. I wasn't as overwhelmed, I think. Even though there was the same amount of content, that was still overwhelming. The other piece is, you know, a lot of us, especially food tour operators, are, you know, kind of isolated and smaller. And the timing of this event was perfect for me, because I'd kind of given myself permission to take January off and then use February to really gear up and plan out my next year and the next 5 years. Because 2021 was kind of a, you know, I did some testing, and demand is definitely great there. So the timing was really great, and it just got me back on track. Like things that, you know, I had looked at and examined and planned 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago, and then they kind of, you know, went into the drawer, and I never really looked at them again, especially through COVID. So it was great, just refresher of, you know, and then it's kind of overwhelming too, because you come back and you're like, oh my gosh, I have so much to do now. But it's great to have some resources now to call upon. And I think that's only two takeaways, but
How was the food tourpreneur track?
it was really good, actually. Yeah, that was probably one of my favorite parts. They had, I think Brian mentioned the session about expanding into multiple cities. They had some very specific breakouts that were just really super relevant to food and beverage operators. So I think that was great. I hope they keep that. I hope they keep that in the format for sure.
I would like to see them enlarge that. And what I will say, it's very easy for us sitting here, right, with all our wishes and everything for Arival. It's a heck of a thing to put on. But I've always thought that, not for this one because it was a very different circumstance, but I'd love to see, a bike track or a multi-day track, attractions track, and you can pick on. Also, maybe even with some operators I was chatting to, a basic, intermediate, and advanced track where if you get someone who, like you at Orlando, you had just started 3 weeks before, maybe some of it was a little bit, this is a mistake I made when I started Tourpreneur. I got tons of emails from people in the early days saying, Shane, you keep saying the letters OTA. What does that mean? I'm like, crikey, yeah, of course we don't.
Yeah.
We don't all know the terms and everything. So I'd love to see basic, intermediate, and advanced, and potentially split down by industry and by verticals rather in the industry as well.
Yeah, I think they do a pretty good job of having, something for everybody, for the bigger operators and the smaller operators. And I really appreciate that about Arival. I think it does feel really inclusive, even if you're an owner operator. And there's still a lot of really good learnings and takeaways. But you do make a good point. Like even in just, since 2019, and even I wasn't really even operating for, a year and a half of that time period. I'm already, know so much more about the business than I did when I first started. And so, it is nice to have, these different entry levels, right, where you can access the information. And because some of it's just way too deep for me, and information that is just, maybe not useful for me ever, or not useful for me for another, 4 or 5 years, something like that.
Absolutely. And I do take my hat off to Arival, because the beauty of our industry is also a problem or frustration is we're so broad, we're so diverse. You have someone who is running a bike tour of Burlington versus someone who's taking a 10-day expedition to the Himalayas. We're all together, and I think they do a really good job of, as you say, looking after the smaller tourpreneur right up to there's quite a few attractions there, for instance, as well, and they're getting something out of it. Brian, so I'll come to you, and it was interesting because you came on our group, say, a week before the event and said, hey, should I stay or should I go now? And you got a lot of responses from the community to that, right?
I did, yes. So, which was, I'm really grateful for. I was on the fence. February is a potentially busy time here in New Orleans for Mardi Gras. And so initially when, Arival was moved into, the first week of February, I pretty much immediately wrote it off just based on the time of the year that it was. And so then I'm going back and forth. All right, it's not really that busy. We have a late Mardi Gras this year. And I think that I could potentially learn a lot from this, but again, I had never been to one before. So I just thought, we have the ability to communicate, through social media, thanks to you and Tourpreneur having, just a really awesome, focused group of people who identify with this industry. So I put it out there and thought, let's see what people say. And, I think we've all read it at this point. It was just overwhelmingly, you need to go, right? And then to double on that, to have two pretty prominent names in the industry, Bruce obviously being one with, money back guarantee. I thought, okay, this is a pretty good kind of trump card. Hey, you better show up here, So, and I'm really glad that I attended. First, the post, it really kind of had my name and my brand's reach, exponentially grow in that community. So a lot of people walked up and introduced themselves to me that I may not have met if that post didn't go out. So I'm just super grateful for that.
And you became friends with Jarrod because of that, right?
Immediately, as soon as Jarrod walked into Trip Camp, it was like we made eye contact, and it was like, boys from the first moment, and it was great. And we really did. It was exactly that. So honestly, it was really cool to have, what felt like a counterpart in. We were both in the same place a few days before. Should we or shouldn't we attend? And then based on the feedback, we both came to the conclusion that, hey, we should go to this. And, and Jarrod and I have talked even again, right before this episode on, it felt like we had just this camaraderie right from the jump, which was really awesome to have.
And I'm really pleased and proud that Tourpreneur played a part in that. And what I really liked was in that thread, and this is what we try and do with all threads. If someone comes on and says, hey, should I work with Viator or not? You'll get honest. It's what we're talking about attending an Arival event. You get this in our Tourpreneur group where your peers that don't have any vested interest will come and say, well, this is what I liked or this is what I didn't like. Please bear this in mind. And that's the kind of exchange we need, because we don't have big alumni associations for what we do, right? We don't go to Cornell or the International Hotel School in The Hague. We're kind of out there on our own, so it's good to have these resources. So let's talk about some of your takeaways then, Brian. As a first-time attendee, what did you learn?
And I have a number of notes written down here, so I'm going to try to hit the three main ones. First, to diversify discovery options, right? And so this kind of ties into my second point as well a little. Posting on Instagram, posting on Facebook, posting on your website, creating blogs. Now this whole TikTok thing is, should we or shouldn't we be on it? Is that our demographic? Is it too young? Not. I think that ultimately the one thing that I took away is, regardless of where it is, on the internet or whether it's on the street in your market, the more options that a potential customer has to discover your tours or your brand, I think is better for you as a business owner and as a business, because we're all consuming content over so many different platforms, and there's no right one or even wrong one for that matter. It's, hey, create it, put it out there and see what comes back. So I think that's probably number one, as far as, I don't think that there's any necessarily bad place to put effort into.
Sorry to interrupt. There's something I'd really like to ask you about here. So did you attend the session on the Gen Z marketing?
Unfortunately, I didn't. It doubled on with another session that I attended. No, I didn't.
How dare Arival put on good sessions at the same time?
That was a really, I attended that, and that was a really good session. And I went into it, kind of skeptical, and I left thinking, oh, I got to start marketing to Gen Z. So it was pretty powerful.
I was just thinking of you, Brian, because I can imagine for some of your tours, maybe there is that younger demographic, and it was Stephen Joyce was pointing out where everyone is kind of hanging out online and how I'm hoping that, I think that's one of the sessions that was recorded. So when they come out, I would definitely recommend watching that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would love to. There is, we have a Photo Walk New Orleans is an Instagram photo shoot tour that we introduced, during the pandemic. So that's obviously that target demographic is hanging out on those Instagram reels and TikTok videos, which we've started to create and post here in the last 6 months. And so we've definitely seen some growth in that area. And, I think this Arival specifically touched on that. There's no real bad place to try, because you don't really know at this point what's coming back from it. So I would say that's my number one takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
And then to tie into that, Kevin from the awkward water sports guys podcast spoke at that operator roundtable at the end of Thursday, and he said something that I thought was really powerful and also pretty polarizing. Using OTAs as a tool, I understand a lot of operators really don't like to use them based on, the high commission. And, but, I think that the exposure that you could potentially get there is I mean, it's amazing, right? And if the margin is too much for you, then, you know, you don't have to use it at all. But to double in with the, you know, diversifying how people can find you, I think that it's pretty important. And then to tie into the very last one, I would say personal connection. You know, I had the opportunity of really being at the right place at the right time. Bruce asked if I wanted to go for a beer, and Douglas happened to join right after. And there were only a few of us. And so I had a really awesome moment where Doug, you know, Googled a term that, you know, Crawl New Orleans ranks #1 for. And on mobile, we were still the 4th listing because, you know, Viator and Get Your Guide, and, you know, they're targeting those keywords. So, you know, I've worked really hard to rank, you know, really high for some of these terms, but, you know, realistically, we're #4. So if I'm not listed on Viator, you know, you're just not there, right? So I think that, you know, that just doubled down on my opinion of, hey, you know, I think that if you price your tour at the right price point, and you know what your margins are, then you can understand, you know, whether you can or can't be there on those tours or not.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head in terms of knowing your margins. I know it's a topic that most of us don't get too excited about, but, you know, so when you are, especially, you know, Jarrod, you were mentioning Viator, they've just launched Viator Accelerate. I've still got to go away and do some study on that, but as I understand it, it's like a commission override. You can put your commission up and go higher up the rankings, but it's dangerous if you don't know your margins, because you'll be underwater before you know it.
Right. If I can, Shane, I was in the pilot program of Accelerate. And so I decided yes, because at first it was invite only, specifically for the New Orleans market. And, you know, I saw an uptick in bookings, pretty substantial. You know, most of our bookings are direct to the website. So, you know, I use it as kind of an add-on, you know, to fill, you know, extra space. And I'm okay with, you know, the percentage that I set, and it is a little bit higher than other people might be comfortable with. But not every tour that we offer is on that program because of the margin specifically. You know, we offer a food tour, and the food tour isn't listed on any of those. But, you know, we offer a nightlife tour, and the margin is much more attractive to be able to kind of compete there. And then, you know, I'm a really big advocate of upping average order value. So we do have, you know, follow-up sequences to when people book, and work around and how to extract that email address, even though Viator doesn't want us to have it. There are workarounds there, and then offering that food tour in a potential direct booking it works for my business, versus I couldn't list that tour on there because the price would just be ridiculous, or the tour operator thought of, I could be losing money on this, right? So I think using it as a tool is super important.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it works. It's been in the hotel industry for a long time, so it'll be to see how that transfers to experiences. Interesting you mentioned OTAs. And this is out to all of you, so obviously there was one session where the head honchos of Viator, Amusement, Get Your Guide were on stage. There was one more there. There was 4 of them, wasn't there? Or was it 3?
Toas?
Yeah, there were 4.
Was it Peaks up there?
That was on the ResTech session. That's how much tequila I had last week. I'm struggling to name it. I think there was, yeah. But what was your takeaway from that session? We'll start with you, Heather. Did you attend that one?
Sorry, which session are you referring to?
With the OTAs, so with Get Your Guide and Viator.
I did attend that. You know, it kind of felt like a rerun of a couple of years, you know, Orlando, and just putting people in the hot seat, and they're not really at liberty to you know, say anything really useful or constructive. And I was kind of thinking maybe we should hear from some OTAs that aren't the top four. Like it'd be interesting to hear from some more diversity in that lineup.
So I head out with the fourth company. Sorry, Varun, for forgetting you there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was the four. Brian, what did you think of it?
So, and I commented on the post on Tourpreneur specifically about this. It's four heads of very, very large, some public, funded companies who are obviously media trained in how to speak for 4 minutes without actually saying anything.
Yeah.
So it was just, Christian Watts was just really put them on the spot. And I thought it was genius what he did and how he did it. And, we still didn't receive an answer from any one of them. I would much rather have them come out and just be honest, say it. Hey, we think that we own this customer. We spent the advertising dollars. We created the brand. Viator is a trusted place to buy things. And if the consumer thinks that is more comfortable with that journey, then, there is a point of they technically do own that information. But come out and say it. That's my big thing. Like I'm okay with it if you come out and say, hey, you know what? We created this platform and we're not sharing this and we're not putting your logo on it because we don't want to take away from our brand. Whether you're okay with that or not, I'm not like commenting on, but I would just much rather hear them say it rather than dance around it, for 40 minutes.
Yeah, and I think that the challenge is, and full disclosure, I'm an ex-regional director at Get Your Guide. I was on that panel for the very first arrival in 2017, and there's a lot of pressure on you. You're terrified of saying the wrong thing. But what, as operators, we turn up to that event, and Douglas Quimby did the best job he could do to try and get some answers. But as operators, as tourpreneurs, what were you looking for from the four people on the stage? Particularly you, Jarrod, you were saying that you were hearing from operators that, you do need to have OTA as part of your strategy. What do you think you can hear from the top guys? And there was no gals there, as Douglas pointed out, but from the top guys of the OTAs? Or is there anything you think they can help you with?
Well, here's what I'll say about that is Brian, he said it perfectly, is that I came away from it almost more frustrated. They came off very smug to me. You know what I mean? And I agree that if they just would have been like, guys, this is our brand. This is how we operate. We'd love to work with you, but this is how it would have been a lot more respectful. Because one of the things, and I was talking to some other operators that maybe they didn't realize that they're talking to a room full of people that started businesses. So nobody in that room is dumb. And they were almost treating us like we were a little bit. And that I did not appreciate that at all. If they would have been a little bit more on the forefront and just been like, this is what we do. This is why we do it. We'd love to work with you. But if you don't, then that's okay too. Where the whole, we don't give you customer information because it's best for the customer. Like that frustrated me. I don't even work with them. And just hearing that kind of stuff was just so frustrating. So I came out of that more with a dislike for their smugness. I felt like they were almost talking down to us a little bit. Like we know more about, even though we're the boots on the ground, we're the face of kind of their company in a sense. Like, we deliver the experience. They kept telling us what was better for the customer, which was really frustrating for me because who knows better than what's for the customer than we do? I doubt any of them have ever led a tour. Maybe I'm wrong, but I doubt it. So if they would just been a little bit more, like Brian said, like, this is what we do. This is our commission. If you want to work with us, great. If not, great. I think that would have been a little bit more. And like you said, Christian, I appreciated that question. And I even actually, the first time I met Douglas, I told him that I appreciated the way that he asked the questions and his tone, in that he didn't let them off the hook. He was trying, was trying as politely as he could to not let them off the hook. you know, when they would give an answer, he'd say, "Oh, come on, you know, da 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 da," and then they'd turn around with another smug, no answer answer. So,
Yeah.
if my dislike for them increase, but you know, again, speaking to the other operators and to what Brian said is using them as a tool more than having to rely on them.
Mm.
So that was my takeaway from that session. I don't think any of us got a straight answer on anything.
Well, and also, I think I didn't hear any new strategy. I didn't really hear a vision. And I know many of us were in a holding pattern because of the pandemic and we're just getting back into it. But I didn't hear anything to get excited about from them. And I almost thought, you know what, they may as well have all had a sponsored demo lab. We go in there and they're like, okay, here's 3 ways you can increase your business. Through working with us, and you got to have 8 photographs and cancellation policy and whatever, and these are your tour descriptions. I think we as operators would get more out of that than having the 4 heads of the OTAs on the stage personally.
Yeah, and you know, like I mentioned in the thread on the Tourpreneur Facebook, you know, in my mind though, I was thinking I do kind of respect them for getting up there, knowing that they probably weren't going to be very liked. You know, they didn't shy away. Again, they didn't answer questions, but at least they kind of.
But I wonder, I sorry to interrupt. I wonder, Jarrod, if they'll be back next year, because they're probably thinking, well, I've flown all the way here from Berlin or Rome. Was it worth my time to get up there? Heather, you had a point. Sorry, you had your hand raised.
Oh, yeah. My feeling is the people on the stage are so far removed from the customer experience. And I kept hearing, I can't remember the gentleman's name from Get Your Guide, and how you know, they have customer service and they're right there. And it can't, you know, and it's like, you know what? They don't have that when you're a small operator. If you're one of their giant money-making operators, maybe you do get that. But I tried for months to get something live on Get Your Guide, and I just finally gave up. Just like, this is too much time to make it happen. Just getting the API, and you know, there was, you know, just all the complications with getting a new product live, right? And I just felt like the people on the stage, you know, are just so far removed from how the operator experiences, like you pointed out, Jarrod. You know what it's like when you don't have the phone number of a guest and you need to reach them, you know, because there's been a sudden change or of some sort, you know. And so, you know, hearing from people at the very, very top of the company, I don't think is as useful maybe as, you know, maybe it is getting an account rep on stage or something like that.
There was a session, wasn't there? I think it was on the Friday morning, how to work with OTAs. Did any of you attend that one?
I wasn't able to.
No, I didn't.
How was it, Jarrod? How was that for you?
You know, it was led by Stu, with he's got a Savannah food tour operator, which I don't recall the name of the company, and then another gal from Big Bus. And maybe it's my fault, because being a Friday, that I was just too overloaded with information, but I didn't take a ton out of it, other than kind of what already Brian said about knowing your margins, using them as a tool, that sort of thing. So there wasn't really anything groundbreaking for me in that session, which was kind of a bummer, because that's exactly one of the top questions that I had. But again, it might have been me just being totally worn out by Friday morning.
Sure. I did feel sorry for them having that morning session. It was on the Friday. I'm like,
that's brutal.
You know, and it's such an important session. I wish it was earlier in the week. That would be my feedback. And then there was also, I guess, another blockbuster session was with the 4 res techs. How was that for you? Start with you, Brian.
You know, I enjoyed that. I'm a peak user, and when I first started the business, I was actually with Fair Harbor, and then I made the switch. I mean, I really like everything that Peak has to offer, so I don't want this to turn into a sales pitch for Peak, but I love her candor. I like, she's pretty fiery and is, in my opinion, really switched on. I enjoyed it a lot. It was cool to see them kind of go back and forth on different features and different things. It was a bit refreshing compared to the other one where you didn't really get an answer from anyone.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Heather?
For me, I was a little frustrated in that they all claim to help you get bookings, but none of them really are able to say how they do that. At least they weren't doing that on stage that day, and I thought that was a little disappointing because you know otherwise they all do a very, very similar thing, and it was there wasn't a lot of distinction among the four of them for me. So that was my takeaway on that.
I suggested to Douglas, and he kind of asked this question, but in a different way than I would have done. And he's the master and the apprentice. So, but the question I would have asked was, what's your company's superpower? And by that, Peak might have said our technology is second to none. Fair Harbor might have said our customer service can't be beaten. It's 24/7. Give me something that I can go away and think, oh wow, I didn't realize they offered that, or whatever it may be. But what's their superpower? And there's 160 res techs out there, and I asked myself the same thing. It's like, okay, what are the differences between them all, and what's right for my business? Jarrod, what was your takeaway?
That's a tough one to answer. You know what? The one thing that stood out to me was when they were talking about like commission rates and this and that. And this isn't because I work with Fair Harbor, but Ted from Fair Harbor goes, "We have the lowest credit card rates." By the way, that was really the only thing that stuck out to me.
Yeah.
Because it would have been, like you said, it would have been nice to hear, this is what I do better than maybe them. And I don't know, they're probably trying to keep that politeness about them. Would have been like, this is what we do better than them. And then maybe I could have gone and researched that, talked to the other operators, like Brian, he went from Fair Harbor to Peak. I spoke with another gal that she said she's been with all of them and went back to Fair Harbor. So as lame as an answer as it is, the one thing that I recall from that session was Ted going, "We have the lowest credit card rates." And that's really all I remember from that session.
Sure. Okay, so maybe sponsored demo labs for all the res techs as well, then, where they can go in. Because I think you're right, Heather. That's what I was looking for. So, okay, you've all pretty much got the same tech and functionality, but how can you help my business grow? What can you share? What intelligence can you share with me that will help me grow my business? That's the feedback here. I think one of my takeaways was actually at the Tourism Solved session, and it was a sponsored demo lab. And the chap there whose name I've forgotten now, I do apologize. He was talking about, what's our values, our mission, and our vision as tourpreneurs. What motivates us? Because none of us are doing this to make millions, right? I mean, we'd love to, but really, it's there's more to what we're doing than that. And is that on our website? So when someone comes on and they land on, say, your walking tour in New Orleans, are they getting that vision, Brian, that you want people to come to your city and have the best time possible? And your site's good. I'm not singling it out, but I know plenty of other sites I look at and it's like, well, that's no different from the other food tour that I saw. Are we putting our mission and our values into the website? And I thought that's something I would go away and take a look at rather than just the standard template. What can I do to really demonstrate our why as a business? Excellent. Let me ask you then, what's the one thing, as we wrap up, what's the one thing you're going to do differently with your business as a result of attending Arival? Jarrod?
Well, I'll tell you right now, I sat down with Jessica from Indy, which, what a sweetheart. Like, I really appreciated her time. But one of the challenges that popped up for me that I wasn't going into Arival with, that now is a big one, is changing my website around. And I really enjoyed the time with the gondola guys.
Yes, Vitaly. Yeah.
And he really seemed to know kind of what he was talking about. And then having him being a former tour operator himself, like, there was a little bit more confidence in there. So now the next question I need to answer myself is, do I push forward with the website I currently have with the 2 pages of notes I took, or do I just hand it over all to them and make that business decision? So that's the next challenge that I have to answer for myself as a result of the events at Arival. So that's kind of what's on my plate next.
Sure. I didn't get to the gondola session, so I've invited Vitaly on the show to tell us a bit more about it. Heather, how about you? What are you going to do differently with Sacktown Bikes as a result of attending Arrival?
I don't know about doing anything differently, but I just have a lot of things to do. I definitely need to work on my website and my core values and making sure that is across all my marketing efforts, kind of just re-examining that.
I'll tell you something, Heather.
And
Your website makes me very hungry.
good. That's definitely the goal. Yeah, and I just, I really need to get serious about time management and staying out of the weeds every day, and which is challenging when it's just me. But the goal is to hire guides this year, and by the end of the year possibly have a part-time ops manager. So just really focusing on using every minute of my day smartly and not letting myself get squirrel, and just distracted. And email, like, just don't even look at email for the first few hours of the day or whatever it is.
So Douglas might be listening to this. Would a suggestion be then, would I be right in saying that some sessions on productivity and time management would be something you'd like to see at the next Arrival?
Yeah, I think those kind of sessions are always super useful, even for experienced operators. I think more financial sessions would be good. I mean, I was surprised how many people were in that session that had been operating for years and had never done an exercise like that. And even if you have done it, it's always good to revisit it or look at it from a different angle. So
was that the session with Trish Higgins?
Oh, the one I'm referring to is with Cultivate,
right?
With Mike and Stephanie. Yeah,
right. Because there
might have been other ones that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, I know Trish Higgins did something, but that was more about buying and selling a tour business. And I just bring it up because when we spoke after we recorded, we discussed potentially launching a kind of mini MBA finance for tour operators, but I wasn't really sure. It was during the pandemic, and I wasn't sure if that was the right time or something that tourpreneurs were looking for. But I might go back and do some more market research on that. But how about you, Brian? What are you going to do differently? You're going to open in 50 cities now, right? Having gone to the multi-destination.
So I would say I don't know that I'm going to do anything really differently, but my one big takeaway in something that I thought that I would get a lot of value from, and I got even more than I expected, is I'm going to continue to reach out to other tour operators and have a dialogue about what's working, what's not working. Being a tour company in New Orleans, we have an insane number of tour companies that are here, and it's a pretty archaic industry here. And I'm the new guy. 3.5 years in, gone through a pandemic and have just tripled down on the digital side of things. Where as an older town, that's not something that really happens here. There's not a big tour guy or a tour owner operator community here for me. So having the opportunity to meet like Jarrod Broach of Nightly Spirits, who again is a competitor on one tour here in New Orleans. But we had an awesome dialogue, and there's a lot to learn from someone that's in 17 cities when I'm just moving into my third now. And then I met Chris Sizemore as well, who just acquired a walking tour company and who's going to be a competitor of mine in the Nashville market too. It was cool to have a camaraderie and a real dialogue of, this isn't a cutthroat industry. We're all into this together. There's enough for everyone to eat. And so I think continue to cultivate those relationships and have an open dialogue moving forward is something that I haven't really done that much. And I think now I have the opportunity to do after having met, so many people that attended the event.
Fantastic. Great to hear. So my final question for you is, who's going to Vegas? Who's going to Arrival Las Vegas?
I'll be in Vegas.
I think I'm going to try and make it for sure.
Jarrod?
Well, so my best seller, my tour is a tour called Phoenix Murders and Mysteries. It's kind of a haunted tour. In October, it's usually popping. So it kind of depends. And while I'm on that topic, one of the other things I took from Rival is, I can't do it on my own. I'm gonna at some point they're gonna have to bring somebody in. And maybe by October, if I bring somebody in and I can trust them, then I'd be happy to go to a Rival in Vegas. So we'll see what the next few months bring.
Well,
If I can jump in there, Jarrod, to double down on what I said. I used to be the only tour guide for the company, and now I have 9. So if you want to connect after this on what that looks like and how to remove yourself from that portion, super happy to sit down and help you move forward in that.
I would absolutely love that.
And if I could take that a stage further, I'd love to invite each and every one of you back onto the show. Normally we do a deep dive, right? We share how you got started and how you overcome challenges and growing your business. I'd love to do that with each and every one of you. I'm very intrigued to hear more about your stories. Jarrod, where can people find your tours online?
spiritofArizonaTours.com.
And Brian?
BrawlNewOrleans.com.
And Heather?
Sacktownbites.com. We're in Sacramento, California.
Fantastic. I will add all of these links to the show notes for today, which we can find at tourpreneur.com/Arival San Diego. Thanks a bunch for coming on today. I know we're really busy. We've got a ton of to-dos after being at Arival. So thanks for coming on and sharing what you learned with all of us.
Right,
Thanks
thanks
for
for having
Thank you,
me.
Shane. Thanks for having us.